Microlearning has three parts to it, right? It's got to be.
Do you think AI holds the potential to developing high-quality microlearning modules?
So now it can do flowcharts, it can do graphics, it can do video scripts.
How has pandemic reshaped the microlearning landscape?
I think pre-pandemic, microlearning was just, so I think that's where the shift happened.
One skill that every L&D professional must have.
We have got to be able to learn.
Hello everyone, welcome to our brand new interview series, Genius Talk, where we pick the brains of thought leaders from the world of L&D. I'm Apurva, the host for tonight's session, and I am an L&D marketer at Animaker. For the people who don't know Animaker, it is a DIY animation tool with over 30 million users across the globe. Recently, we have been ranked as the #1 design tool by G2 Review. And in tonight's session, we have got Shannon Tipton with us. Hey Shannon, thank you for joining us. Shannon has been a prominent name in the face of L&D for the past nearly 30 years, I guess. And she has been a learning strategist and a specialist. She is an international speaker and also an advocate for change in workplace learning. She has her own consultancy called Learning Rebels, where she helps top companies with their learning solutions. And she's also an expert in microlearning. So in today's topic, we will be exploring the world of microlearning. We'll be busting some of the common myths and misconceptions about microlearning. And I have a lot of thought-provoking questions that I would like to ask to expand our view on microlearning. And finally, we have got a rapid-fire session, which I'm super excited about. So, hi Shannon, so happy to have you with us.
Well, thank you for having me. I really appreciate the invite, and I'm always open to have a conversation about microlearning. It is something that I feel passionate about. So thank you for having me.
The first part is called Genius Journey, where we'll be exploring your professional journey. Let's get started with that first. So, Shannon, nearly 30 years in the field of L&D. It is no small feat, right? So, at a time when people wanted to become doctors, lawyers, and engineers, how did you think that L&D is going to be my thing? So, how did that happen?
How did that happen? That's an interesting way of phrasing that question. It's funny. Yeah, I did not wake up one day going, oh, gee, I want to be an L&D professional. This is my life's passion. That didn't happen. I actually started in the restaurant business. So I was on the operations side of restaurants. I was manager, district manager. I was an international regional manager. So I had all of these different positions within the restaurant business. But I really didn't find it to be terribly fulfilling. I was tired of just focusing on numbers. I wanted to focus on people, and I really wasn't sure what that path would look like. So I went to the leadership and I asked them, what can I do? I have this skill for developing franchisee and franchise owners. So what can I do with this skill? And they said, oh, well, we'll just put you in training. Like, oh, okay. So that's where it all started. And I knew absolutely nothing about the training field, about L&D and anything associated with it. But fortunately, I was curious about it. I really wanted to learn more. And so back in those days, you didn't have the Google machine, right? There was none of that. So you had to pick up a book and you had to read about learning science, and you had to try to connect with others through conferences, and you joined membership organizations, and you just tried to learn. And the more that I learned, the more that I wanted to be a part of this industry. And that's where it all started.
So you were dealing with front-end people at restaurants, basically. So you were training them, like you were good at it and you started training them as well. So
Well, right. So my job at the time was to go into franchised markets. My last territory was the Pacific Rim. So I would go into restaurants that were in South Korea, Japan, New Zealand, etc., and help them set up their restaurants, help them set up their businesses so that their businesses would be successful, right? And I was also the person that they would report all their numbers to and all their sales to and all of that. And I was really just interested in how could I make this person be more successful than they were yesterday, right? And then that really became the motto, if you will, of what I do is how can I help people be smarter, better, faster than they were the day before, right?
One day,
And that's really how I've taken my career.
well, that's really inspiring. So, the next question is Learning Rebels. It's a very interesting name, to be honest. So, what is the thought behind the name, and why did you decide to start your own independent consultancy?
Well, I'll try to keep that story short. It was Learning Rebels was a blog at first, and it was a blog that I had started with a friend way back when I was in corporate America. And then when I decided to stop working for corporate America, actually what happened is that they moved their main headquarters from Chicago to Philadelphia, and I didn't want to move. And I thought, well, if I don't want to move and I really feel passionate about what I do and how I do it, maybe I should just open up my own business. So I went completely backwards from all of the advice that everyone tells you to do, right? They tell you have money saved up and have a business plan and do this and do that. And I was like, nope, not going to do any of that. I'm just going to dive on in and see what happens. And so then when I was thinking about a business name, I'm like, well, I already have this blog. And so I went to my friend. I said, can I use this blog as my business name? And she said yes. And so that was the beginning of it. I thought, well, the way that I look at learning is really, at the time, it was different. You know, the philosophy was different. And so I thought, well, I think Learning Rebels is a good way that fits into my philosophy. So let's do that. And that's how that happened.
It's always about breaking the path and coming up with something new. Okay. Yeah,
That seems to be the history, yes.
that's a very suitable name, to be honest. So we are done with the first part of the interview. Now we are going to the second part of the interview. This is called Picking the Genius Brain. And we are going to get into the topic of the day, microlearning. Let's start with some basics. So, when it comes to microlearning, there are so many perspectives around people, right? So, some people call it as short courses, while there are other people who say that when you chop the larger pieces of content into smaller chunks, that's called microlearning. So, if I had to ask you in simple terms, how would you define microlearning?
Well, the definition that I have always used, and I have been working in the microlearning space since about early 2018, maybe late 2017, I think. And the definition that I have always used for microlearning has been microlearning is short bursts of focused right-sized content to achieve a specific outcome. And so I realized that that's kind of general, but I use that definition on purpose, one, because it's flexible, but also because I wanted to point people specifically to the idea that it is short and it deals with something very specific in order to get a really specific outcome out of that learning nugget, if you will.
My second question is actually a follow-up of the first one. So many organizations, when they start making microlearning content, they fall into this trap of, chopping up their already pre-existing content into smaller bites. So, but I have been reading your blogs for some time, and I have seen that chopping is not necessarily microlearning. It is not going to give the exact experience that your employees should be given. So, The real question is, how can companies smoothly add well-designed microlearning pieces into their current curriculum without just reusing their old content into smaller pieces? Like, how can they transition smoothly?
Well, I don't think it's about not using already established content. They can do that, but it's just a matter of reconfiguring that content in a way that's appropriate for microlearning. And so briefly, when you think about microlearning has 3 parts to it, right? It's got a beginning, it's got a middle, and it's got a definitive end. When we think about chunking, so this is where L&D professionals get in trouble or organizations get in trouble when you said they chop it up, right? So when you chop it up, what happens is you have a beginning, you have a middle, and you have a to be continued. Okay. And so what that leads to is if you had a 1 hour, let's say your CEO gave a 1 hour lesson about something, and then you said, well, let's chop that up into 4 15-minute parts, which is the natural inclination. And, we really should be chunking things down anyway, but let's think about it in microlearning terms. So we're going to chunk it into 4 15-minute parts. What happens with that is, in order for me to understand what is happening in part 2, I need to watch part 1, right?
Yeah.
And then I also need to watch part 3 in order to understand what happened in part 2 and then in part 1. So what they need to do is, if you're going to take and repurpose your content, is you need to create capstones. So you have a beginning, some sort of introduction, this is what we're going to do, and then you have a conclusion that says, okay, this is what we have done, and this is now how you are going to take action on it. If you want to learn more, continue to watch the next piece. Yeah, each piece then becomes a standalone object.
Okay, so it is multi-purposeful, right? The piece individually also makes sense, and you can put it up as a course and it will still make sense. It serves both the purposes. So that's great.
Right.
So the next question is, so there's a general perception that microlearning strategies only for simple topics, like simple specific topics. What's your take on this, and is it possible to use microlearning for complex and technical training?
Sure. You just have to be careful, because microlearning is just another tool in your toolbox, right? We've got different ways that we can go with learning. So then it's about, what does the content require? Can we insert short pieces into larger complex topics? Absolutely. So if you think about leadership development, right? Can we insert small microlearning bits for somebody after they've completed or while they're in the middle of their leadership development training? Yeah, you can do that. So you can use it as a reinforcement link, right? Nobody is going to be able to take a leadership development program successfully through small incremental bites. That's just not going to happen. You need to have something to connect it with. You need to have some shared experiences, etc. But you can put microlearning elements into that process and make it work. Okay. So that's how you would handle a larger, more complex topic.
Yeah. Okay, got it. So there's a follow-up question for this, which answers what you actually told. What other learning methods can be effectively combined with the microlearning to facilitate into the complex training solutions? So basically,
Sure.
you said, you can add it to an existing method as something, as you mentioned, a tool inside the tool.
So what you're doing then is you're taking you're now blending your content, right? So you're taking blended learning now, right? And you are incorporating microlearning bits into your blended learning classroom. You could also do this with flipped. So if you think about a flipped classroom, right, which is we're putting all of the lecture stuff up front. So then you can take all of that information and you can put that into microlearning content, have them go through that, and then come to the classroom and discuss what they've learned through the microlearning content. So you can take and augment your blended or flipped courses with it easily.
It's like a fun interactive session also, right?
Absolutely.
In one of your interviews, you mentioned that I don't believe or I don't like to measure the effectiveness of microlearning through numbers. So why is that so? And if not numbers, how else to measure the effectiveness otherwise?
It's not as though I don't want to measure it through numbers. It's that a lot of times we put measurements behind a learning process that really don't tell a story. And so if we're going to measure microlearning, we have to make sure that what we're measuring is appropriate. And a lot of times we're not. And so the way that I think about microlearning is that a lot of times, most of the time, it's connected to a bigger learning initiative. Okay? So now let's go back to our leadership development program. What was the business goal for that leadership development program? Was it to improve retention within the workforce? Was it to create leadership that was more innovative or creative? What were you looking for when you put that leadership development program? Okay, so now that you've established that, just make sure that the microlearning elements that you've inserted into your learning development course align with those business goals. So the microlearning itself is not the linchpin to success. It's everything. Now, what you might measure with microlearning in of itself is, were the PDF documents downloaded? Was the video watched? If it was watched, for how long? Right, did people open up the course? Right, so those are the sorts of things where you can say, okay, we have engagement. But when you think about actual learning outcomes, it's all about behavioral. And that's what you're going to see when people conclude. So are people behaving the way that you had hoped that they would behave at the conclusion of whatever they took? Right? Do you see the business results based on that?
Is there effectiveness in the training? Did they do the task that they were supposed to do instead of just measuring? Did they click on the post? Did they open the file up? There's no human touch to it as well. It's more analytical based. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. And you can put data analytics behind this. So if you're running an XAPI, for example, you can then see the progress of how people are going through the microlearning. But if you're using microlearning as part of a drip feed campaign, so you're sending them emails, right? Maybe. So within those emails, you have lessons. So how do you measure that? Well, did they open the email? Okay, well, let's start there. So if they didn't open it, then you know that things aren't happening the way that they need to happen. But in general, think about when you watch a YouTube video. So if you go to YouTube and you watch a video, as in like how to cook a chicken, at the end of that YouTube video, I guarantee they are not giving you a quiz. They're saying, here's what we want you to be able to do at the beginning, and here's the result. So now look at your chicken. Does your chicken look like this? If so, then you're successful. If not, try again. So that's how microlearning in of itself can work when you think about putting it inside the workflow.
Is it helping the person to get to the work than, measuring numbers? That's more important.
True. Right.
The next question is, how can microlearning be adapted to cater the unique needs of different generations? So we have got Gen X, millennials, and we are also seeing Gen Z enter the workforce. So what is your thought about this?
I think microlearning just appeals across generations. So I try not to bring different generational types into it because let me restate, no one wants to sit through an hour-long e-learning course. No one wants to do that. If you're 60 or if you're 16, no one wants to do that. So how can you then just make the learning as appealing and as engaging as you possibly can? And then you can think, well, how do people within my organization like to receive information? Because there's an organizational culture here that you have to address. So if the organizational culture is not for chatbots, they're like, no, that's not for us. Well, then even though a Gen Z person may want to talk with their phone, if the organizational culture doesn't support that, then we have to go back to what will it support.
You cannot just take the generations into consideration. You should also think about the company and what are they doing, what is their form of working. So, okay, got it.
Right, exactly. And sure, you can shift. I'm always, hey, test it out. So your organizational culture may say, oh, we don't want to do chatbots. Well, you know what? If you can do an experiment with 10 people and see how that works, and if you see great success with it, then roll it out to 20 people, then roll it out to 40 people, right? Then the next thing you know, it's part of your organizational culture. But that's how you break through those barriers.
So the next question is, in one of your blogs, you mentioned that videos aren't the only way to create microlearning content. Infographics, PDFs, and other formats are also highly effective for specific scenarios. So my question is, in what scenarios do you think videos and animations are effective for microlearning? And when should one opt for other content formats?
Yeah, that's a really great question, and I get that. My point has always been it's not always about video, because a lot of times people think microlearning and they automatically go to video. It's like, okay, what does the content require? And that's always my go home point. It's look at the content. What does the content require? Does the content require just a checklist? You don't need to do a video, just give them a checklist. So if the content says, if it speaks to you, and I know that sounds odd, but when you look at the content speaks to you and it's not shouting video, then don't do video. You can't shoehorn it. But there are times where it's absolutely appropriate. So for example, if I were going to teach you how to tie your shoes, I'm not going to send you a podcast. I'm going to send you a video. Right? So it's all about what will help the learner get the outcome that you need to have achieved, and then think about the modality.
You should also think about where the employee is working, under what
absolutely
working. This is something I learned from one of your interviews only. I think it was a session in London where you said it has to be appropriate for the person to access the material, or else it's a flop. You cannot really put things through them.
It's absolutely a waste. If they are, and I've worked with clients like this before, so they will be in like a clean room. So it's technology, so they'll be in a clean room, and they can't bring their phones into a clean room. So what are you going to do? You can make this great video, but they can't watch it. Same thing if you've got someone who's out like on a construction field, right? They're not going to stop what they're doing to watch a video. So, or maybe they don't have the bandwidth, or maybe they don't have a Wi-Fi connection. So what are you going to do? So those are all of the peripheral things that you have to think about once you say, oh, I'm going to make a video. Now you got to think about all these other things to ensure that that's possible.
I think it's easier to get excited with what kind of content you want to make, but you should also be empathetic on the other end.
There's a bias. We have a bias as L&D people. You got some people who are really excited about creating videos. You have others that are really excited about graphic design. So we have those things that we love to do, but they aren't always the right direction to go in.
So the next question is, your blogs have consistently highlighted the importance of rapid content creation for microlearning. Like, it has to be quick. The making process has to be quick. So do you think AI holds the potential to significantly streamline the process of developing high-quality microlearning modules in a shorter time span?
Oh, absolutely. For sure. If you think of just the front end work, so if you think about microlearning, there's a process, right? You have content, we'll say communication skills. And communication skills is a very broad and big topic. So that means you've got to go through all of the brainstorming mechanisms, to decide where am I going to focus? How do I chunk that down? How do I get to the smallest bit that I need to get to? AI can help you do all of that. So you can run your communication outline or article or course thesis through AI, and you can have it do the brainstorming for you and get down to the smallest nugget, and you can, boom, go straight to work, right? So that's a great help.
Also, I feel like AI really helps you to at least get started with the process. It gives you a proper outline, and it's a very collaborative process. The more you give input to the AI, the better results you get out of it. The immediate thought that people think about AI is content creation. Yes, that is true, content creation, but there are other sectors where AI is going to enter. So please be vigilant of that as well.
Because right now, if you think about the emergence of ChatGPT 4.0, so now it can do flowcharts, it can do graphics, it can do video scripts, it can do all of those things that used to take forever, especially if a creative mindset is not your comfort zone. So if you're very analytical, for example, and now you need help from a creative perspective, the AI can help you do that. And that's really going to not only just save you time, because it is about productivity on certain levels, but it also can help you produce something that's really good that maybe you didn't think about yourself.
True. Because I see a lot of articles about time saving, but why is the time being saved? Like, what is the need for the time saved? Like, come up with the better content. True. And there's a follow-up question for this as well. So, have you seen some of the interesting ways people are using AI in L&D? Like, have you been using in interesting ways, or have you seen others use AI in interesting ways?
Oh, definitely. I just did a workshop not too long ago about, how to do exactly what we just talked about. And it was, here's your content, here's your topic. Now, from that topic, generate learning outcomes based on Bloom's taxonomy and based on the Maker model of a 3-part learning objective. Now take that and create a lesson outline. Now take that lesson outline and using Dagny's 9 events of learning, create activities based on those 9 events, right? And so what we did is we went through that whole process, and it took us less than an hour to do, right? So again, fast, but people were amazed at the quality. So it's about what you ask it, so garbage in, garbage out, right? So it's like, you've got to ask quality questions in order to get quality responses. But I've seen people who are using it. There's a number of people online right now who are using it to create fabulous graphics, but as long as you say that your graphics are AI generated, that's the only thing, right? We've got to credit where credit is due. We've got to say that it's AI generated, not generated by us or somebody else, and as long as you're careful that the AI isn't hallucinating content, right? So you're still doing your research, then people out there are doing some really fabulous things. They're helping you write communication pieces. I use it to write emails sometimes, So it's, when you think about the marketing part of L&D, right? So when you think about marketing your department, you can use AI to help you market your department, and you use it like that. So there's so many ways that people are using AI right now.
The next question is, you have been an advocate of microlearning even before the pre-pandemic days, as you mentioned, from 2018, end of 2018. So having witnessed its evolution firsthand, what was the most striking differences you've observed in the ways organizations approach microlearning now compared to the pre-pandemic times? So in your view, how has pandemic reshaped the microlearning landscape?
That's a really interesting question. I think pre-pandemic, microlearning was just, people were really just figuring it out. And they were still trying to figure out what was the difference between microlearning and chunking content, et cetera, et cetera. And then the pandemic hit, and then it became about how can we deliver training to people who are in their homes, right? without having to create a bunch of e-learning courses that we might have to scrape later on. And then it was, okay, we've got people who are sitting virtually, so can we do something virtually as well, right? So all of these components were just circling around. And then microlearning came back up. And then you saw all of these different apps, Engage by Cell, Learning, TikTok, right? So you see all of these, TikTok for learning. So you see all of these apps start to flourish because they realize that we can get to where people are. And I think that was the biggest aha moment, is that microlearning can help reach people where they are at and not create confusion or disruption in where they sat. And it became an easy way to do it. Also, a flexible way of doing it. So we can put out training really quickly right now to adjust the need, because we had all of this instructor-led content sitting on the shelf that we can't use anymore. So now we have to do something really quickly. And this was an area where it was like, aha, microlearning, we can do that, and we can do that quickly. So I think that's where the shift happened. And I think that's where the momentum still continues to build.
I think it has lasted for quite a long time. Till now we are talking about it. I think it's because of pandemic, because pandemic also contributed for it to stay relevant till today.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's not a trend. It's just the way we work, right? Went from being pre-pandemic, when I was doing my work on it, it was a fad. And then it became a trend. And so now it's just how we work.
People just got, this is how it works here afterwards. So yeah, got used to it. The next question is, could you share some of the case studies and success stories where you have helped organizations implement microlearning activities, initiatives effectively?
Sure. I can give you a couple without giving away any names or any of that sort of thing. There was a sales company that I worked with, and they were having a new product rollout. And sales, the way that sales works is that they bring all of their people in, they do a product launch, right? And then they do product demos, and then they send everybody away, and they hope that they remember it. And it costs a lot of money. And every company does it that way. And this company reached out because they were looking for a different way to approach that. And what we did is that we broke it up into more of a blended solution, where they had a virtual rollout, and then they still did demos within their region. But what we did was we implemented chatbots. So we sent chatbots out to the sales team on a regular basis, incrementally before the launch. So 6 weeks before the launch, they got a chatbot about the product, reminding them about what it did and how it worked, etc. And we sent that out once every 7 to 10 days. And then as the time got closer and closer to the launch, the chats became more and more frequent. So it went from once a week to twice a week to 3 times a week. Don't forget, do this, do that, go here, learn this. Especially being with product knowledge, things change. And so we were like, okay, you have to go to this Slack channel to receive this information that's new, right? And so we continued to roll that out. And by the time they hit the ground running, they saw almost a 20% increase in sales than they had through any other prior product knowledge. So that microlearning helped hit the goal. But also there was an interesting serendipitous result from that. They had less turnover. So they didn't lose salespeople during this process, whereas before they would lose salespeople because they would become confused or overwhelmed or what have you, and they would quit. So they didn't lose anybody throughout this whole launch. So it was an interesting serendipitous event. Now, the second way that we've handled this, also through a medical device company, was we created email lessons. So we sent all of the emails, we sent all the lessons via email in small bits. So that was templatized, So we sent the templates to the business owners because the stakeholders wanted to own that process. So we rewrote templates for them for each of the different lessons that were going to go out. Insert video here, insert audio here, right? So we created a catalog for them to pull from, insert, and then send to their people. And again, they were able to so they had a product launch on the back end. So they were able to shorten the meeting time. So usually it was a full week. Because of this event, they were able to shorten it to 3 days. So they saved time and money, and they were still successful. So those were a couple that right off the top of my head that I could think of that were really successful in using microlearning to help them achieve their goals.
I think when it comes to the sales company that you work with, it's more like spaced learning, right? You're giving them the needed information that is required with certain levels of, time gap, so that they can process the information and then start with something fresh, something that can sit inside them for a longer period of time. That's great, actually.
Right. Yeah, and that's exact. So going back to your question about measurement, this is why you don't measure the chatbot. You measure what the ultimate outcome is. And that's so you connect it to that business goal and you see these things happen.
We've come to the last question in this session. L&D is constantly evolving with new technologies and approaches emerging all the time. So looking ahead to the next 5 years, what is the biggest trend you see coming to define the future of learning and development?
I wish I had a crystal ball. Then I'd be doing this interview from the Bahamas. I think the biggest thing that we need to pay attention to for now and in the future, it's not just AI, it's AI literacy. True. So how are we learning about what it can do for us? How do we know all of the things that it can do for us? And then you couple that with data analytics. So data analytics is going to become increasingly important in what we do. And it's just to ensure that are we doing the right things at the right time with the right tools? And you can't use the data if you don't understand where the data is coming from. So to me, AI literacy is one of the most important things that we need to be paying attention to. Because not only with data analytics, but also when you think about automation bias, when you think about all of the things that go around AI, right? And then from a more L&D-ish perspective, I think some of the future holds for us more community-based learning. So I think we're going to see a trend away from e-learning. Not that e-learning is going to die, but I think that we're going to see less of a dependence on that sort of learning. And we're going to go back to community-based learning. We're going to be using more peer-to-peer learning. So community-based, peer-to-peer, user-generated.
The old trends are coming back again, peer-to-peer.
On their legs, right? Because now we can create communities. I hesitate to use the word create. Those communities are there. So we can nurture those communities. We can bring life to them, through a variety of different tools, because we realize now that we don't always have to be in the same space, right? You're in India, I'm in Chicago, we're having this great conversation. So organizations can see this right there happening, and there's a lot of business reasons to make that occur. So you think about communities, you think about peer-to-peer, people learning from each other, but also that user-generated, right? So let the learners create the learning that they want to learn from. Let them have a hand in that.
It's like a community. It's like Reddit, right? They can share information. Something like social media experience, basically, which is also something that I got from your London session, where you said the tools have to be in a way how people use things in their day-to-day life. It has to work like Google, it has to work like YouTube, and it has to work like Facebook, right? So, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, because people don't, there's no need to recreate the wheel here, you know? And so if you can make it easy for people to use the tools and to be in the communities, then they're going to do that.
True. Yeah, they will automatically do it. There's
Right.
no need to force them or pressure them. They would like to do it for
That's
themselves.
right.
So now we are going to enter into the third part of the interview, which is my favorite, rapid fire round. I've got a lot of questions, so let's get started quickly. What is your favorite tool or tech? Recent favorite tool or tech?
ChatGPT.
Yeah, it's my favorite too. So yeah, it has been saving lives. So yeah. So the next question is, what is your favorite microlearning format? Your personal favorite microlearning format?
Infographics. Yeah, because you can put a wealth of information in an infographic and just send it out.
And I also feel like it is not very dependent on language.
Yeah.
Videos, okay, I understand English, I'm able to watch it. What about the others who don't understand English? I feel like infographics, to an extent, they can communicate what it is required to communicate. It's what I feel.
My example of that is when you fly, there's that thing that's in the seat back pocket, right? The how to get off the plane, and that's all in pictures. So if they can show me how to get off the plane, if the plane is in dire need, using pictures, then I think that I can teach somebody how to communicate. I think we're good.
If you have chosen a different occupation, what would it be?
I always loved the movies, but I didn't want to be an actor. But I like movie theaters. So I think it would have something to do with movie theaters, running one or having one or something like that.
Oh, nice. That would have been interesting. So,
yeah.
Then, if you get a magic wand and if you want to change something, what would it be? It can be anything.
If I had a magic wand and could change anything, well, I suppose I could just go the Miss America route and say world peace. But outside of that, what would I change? In my own life, let's just say, oh, you know what I would change? I would wave a wand and make sure that everybody, including myself, had a more focused view of work-life balance.
Great.
Really, because I think we all work way too hard and do way too much, and we don't take enough time to take care of ourselves.
That's actually a very nice answer, and it's a nice use of the wand. So, in your opinion, what is one skill that every L&D professional must have?
Business acumen. We have got to be able to learn more about how businesses operate in order for us to be successful. We don't talk the language of business, we talk the language of learning, and our businesses don't care about the language of learning. They care about the language of business. So, in my opinion, we need to do more about business acumen in order to further connect ourselves and add value.
What is your favorite book on learning and development?
Designed for How People Learn by Julie Dirksen.
Designed for How People. Okay, we'll definitely check it out for sure. If your life is a movie, what would the title be?
Oh, wow. What would the title be of a movie? It would be something like stage 1, stage 2, stage 3.
You mean the movie divided into sections?
Yeah, this is what the first phase of your life was going to be. Here's what the second phase of your life is going to be, and here's what the third phase of your life is going to be, none of which is expected. There we go. The unexpected journeys of your life. That's the title.
Interesting movie title. So here is my this is the last question, and this is my favorite question out of all. So today we discussed so many things about microlearning, but what is the one piece of information that you would want the viewers of this video not to forget when they think of using microlearning in their training?
One concept at a time. So microlearning, one topic only. That's what I would ask them to remember. A lot of times in L&D, when we want to train somebody to do things, for example, your team member only wants to know how to tell time, yet we insist on giving them the history of the watch. So microlearning is one topic only, stay to that topic.
Makes sense. Because it's a lot of time waste, right? I just wanted to know something simple.
Oh, right. Please, no, I don't need the history of the Apple Watch. I want to know how to use the app feature. That's all I want to know. So just give them that.
So I think this reminds me of the time when I was doing, I did communication. I'm basically a communication graduate. So we had a paper at that time called social media communication. So I really thought that they would be teaching how to run ads or something like that. But they started with who invented Facebook. I can Google that.
I can't Google that.
You could have literally asked me to, check this Wikipedia page. I will literally do that. I really don't want to know about the history of Mark Zuckerberg. Till the end of the session, till the end of the course, I didn't really know how to run ads. I just had to learn it by myself. So yeah.
Perfect example.
We are done with the interview. It was so fun. Thank you so much, Shannon. Thank you so much for taking the time, and thank you so much for generously sharing your expertise in the field of microlearning with me. Thank you so much.
Oh, it was my pleasure. It was a lot of fun. I enjoy having these conversations. I'm glad you found it to be a chill environment. That makes me happy. Good.
As the last part of the session, we're going to take a picture. So it will be nice if you can strike a goofy pose or something. Goofy or something that is fun, So I'm going to hold my mug. So you can do something else if you want to.
You hold your cup, I'll hold mine. How about that?
Yeah. Okay, cool. So yeah, I think we are done with the session. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. It was my pleasure. Thank you for having me. It was an honor. I appreciate it.